Actually, I'm Chuck Holton, and this is the Hot Zone Live, coming to you from central Armenia. It's a little drippy today. At least it is now. We had a pretty good day. It was nice and sunny up until about, 3 p.m. And then it was supposed to clear up and be no clouds, and it actually got worse. So it started raining when it was supposed to stop, but whatever, you'll have that. I'm in the town of Dilijan. Dilijan is known as the Switzerland of Armenia, and you can kind of see why from the mountains behind me. It's intensely green here and lots of amazing scenery. I've been putting photos up on my website on chuckholton.com, so you can go over there and see some more photos of what we have been seeing today on our tour. We went to a place called Qatar, which is a 13th century monastery that's up on a mountain, and looks like it got sacked by the Mongols, but it is a pretty fascinating place. A little bit of a hike to get up to it, but not too bad. We also went to a museum for Arthur McCoyan, who was the inventor of the MiG fighter jet, which was especially interesting to me since I was being strafed by MiG fighter jets and bombed by them when I was in Burma a couple of months ago. And so I wanted to talk today a little bit about something that's going on here in Armenia, news-wise, with the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And then if we have a few minutes, we can talk about this operation in Israel where they're going into Rafa now. We talked about it on my CBN Live last night, and it looks like a limited operation into Rafa is beginning, and so we can talk about that if we get a few minutes. I've only got about half an hour for this live because we've got to go to dinner, and I wanted to knock this out because, like I say, look at how beautiful this is. It's just astounding out there. Really, really pretty, even with the rain. So nice. It's about 7:15 at night here, and right now I'd say it's probably 55 degrees. As a matter of fact, I can see some fresh snow up on the mountaintops over that direction, which are probably 1,500 feet above where we are. So it's a little bit chilly, but not too bad. So anyway, let's talk about what's going on here in Armenia. If you have been following anything about this country, you know that Armenia has been under attack by Azerbaijan since 2020, actually well before that. But there was a big war in 2020 that lasted 44 days in which Armenia lost over 5,000 men and women. Very sad for Armenia. And Azerbaijan took over an area called, part of an area called the Nagorno-Karabakh region, or what the Armenians call Artsakh. It was an exclave full of Armenians that lived about a 4-hour drive outside of Armenia, inside Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was drawn by Joseph Stalin back in the early part of the 20th century, 1916, something like that, and only became a nation in 1917. Before that, it's not that those people didn't live there, but many of them were moved in from other parts of Russia, or came up from, they were Azeris that came up from northern Iran, things like that. And for some reason, Joseph Stalin thought it was a good idea to draw a bunch of exclaves. So there's a village here that's all Azeris, and there's a village over here that's all Armenians, and instead of gerrymandering around those villages or everything, they just put the line right through the middle and left those exclaves belonging to Azerbaijan. There were 5 exclaves that I know of belonging to Azerbaijan that were in Armenia, and 5 exclaves that were Armenian villages or areas that were inside Azerbaijan, so that they both had exclaves in both sides. When the Soviet Union fell in 1991, all of that sort of came to a screeching halt, and everybody, all of the satellite states, I think there were 14 of them, they all declared, they balkanized, they all declared independence from the Soviet Union, became their own countries, and Artsakh, or the Nagorno-Karabakh region, because it was 300,000 Armenians, even though they're sort of a little bit removed from Armenia proper, they wanted to join Mother Armenia. The Azeris were like, nope, that's our land, and they immediately started a war against them. Armenia came to their defense, and Armenia won. This is back in the 1990s. What they did then was, hi, Kay, thank you for being a supporter. What the Armenians then did is they kind of created a buffer zone around the Nagorno-Karabakh region and held it with their armed forces all the way up till 2020. In 2020, by 2020, the Azeri armed forces had grown to the point they were 5 times larger than Armenia's armed forces. Armenia never really invested much anymore in their armed forces. Meanwhile, the Azeris were spending heavily on theirs. And so now the Azeris were stronger than the Armenians. They took back most of the Nagorno-Karabakh region in 2020. I was here for that. Fast forward to last year. In September of last year, the Azeris completed their task by making a lightning attack on the remaining part of the Nagorno-Karabakh region and retaking it, well, not retaking it, but taking it over and kicking out the remaining 120,000 Armenians who were living there. Those 120,000 Armenians then had to flee to Armenia proper. Armenia then, has all these IDPs living here, internally displaced persons, and it's been a real sore spot for Armenia ever since. Azerbaijan, for its part, has continued to threaten Armenia and saying, we're going to take more and more and more of Armenia. They've even started referring to all of Armenia as Western Azerbaijan, which makes people here very nervous because Armenia is a very small country. And Azerbaijan knows their military is much larger, plus they have the support of the 8th largest military in the world, Turkey. And so between Turkey and Azerbaijan, they could easily take over this country completely and, drive out all the Armenians. They wouldn't have anywhere to go. That'd be very, very traumatic for this country, who has already suffered through several genocides, right? So the Armenians are really concerned about that. Well, in order to placate the Azeris have been saying, we want back all of the exclaves of Azeri villages that were in Armenia. The thing about those is that they're villages in name only because they're kind of ghost towns. The Azeris that lived there left a long time ago. It wasn't worth it to have an exclave of 200 people, in a tiny little village and surrounded by people who were not very happy with you. It's just not very friendly. And so they had left and gone back to Azerbaijan. They claim they were driven out. The Armenians say they weren't driven out. They just left because it wasn't fun to live there, whatever. I don't know necessarily what the truth of that is because that happened a long time ago. Suffice it to say, the villages that Azerbaijan wanted back were not even, it was just little polyps of land inside Armenia with empty villages and nobody lived there. And so Azerbaijan was like, we want these other villages back. The president of Armenia, President Pashinyan, trying to make peace with Azerbaijan under a lot of pressure from foreign elements like the United States and Russia, to make peace with Azerbaijan, to get over it already or whatever. I don't know what their sentiment is, but Pashinyan felt like he didn't have a lot of choice. All he had was bad choices, because if he didn't accede to the demands of Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan could very well attack Armenia, and that would go badly for Armenia, very, very badly, and could lead to them losing their entire country. And so his other option was to, so he has the option of giving in to the Azeris, which is not going to make doesn't make him look strong to his own people, or looking strong to his own people and then losing his entire country, possibly. Neither of those is a good idea. Neither is a good option. So he took the lesser of two evils and chose to give back those 4 empty villages to Azerbaijan. Well, that's caused a lot of rancor, a lot of anger from the, very nationalist elements of Armenians, led by an archbishop from the Armenian Apostolic Church, and he's now conducting a march here in Armenia to, drum up support and whip up the furor of the nationalist sentiment of the people to take back their land. The question that I have for that guy is, how do you propose to do that? Armenia's military is not big enough, it's not strong enough to take on Turkey and Azerbaijan. And that is exactly what they would have to do in order to take back their land militarily. If there was a diplomatic way to take back their land, Pashinyan hasn't found it, and I don't see it. I'm not sure where that would come from. So, I get that it hurts to lose more of your property to your archenemy, your nemesis, Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. And I understand also that by acceding to his demands, you're probably only going to cause him to come up with further demands for more land. As a matter of fact, Ilham Aliyev has already been talking about, you have to give us the Zangezur corridor, which connects that's okay. So Armenia has a little flag, one province that goes down and touches Iran. We're going to be there day after tomorrow. It's called Syunik province. And Syunik province is very narrow. It's only 30-something miles wide. And it is sandwiched between Azerbaijan on one side and Nakhichevan, which is another, thank you, Vosh. Nakhichevan is another exclave of Azerbaijan outside, and it's separated from Azerbaijan by that little flag lot in Armenia. Now what they're saying is, Azerbaijan is saying, you have to give us a corridor through Syunik province so that we can connect easily to Nakhichevan and run a pipeline through there to get our oil and natural gas out to the west. Armenia has been very much against that because that would cut their access to Iran. Iran is also against that because it would cut their access to Russia. They don't really need it, to be fair, because they've already made a deal with Iran, the Azeris have. They've made a deal with Iran to run a pipeline and a corridor through Iran to get around the Zangezur corridor and get what they need, have the access to Nakhichevan through Iran. But they're not happy with that. So I get it that, hi, one tired mama. I get it that Armenia feels like by acceding to the demands of Azerbaijan, we're just setting ourselves up for more demands from them and more demands from them, and they're just going to nibble away at Armenia until there's nothing left. That they're watching the other extremist Muslim groups like the Palestinians in Gaza or like Hezbollah, and they're watching them, in the way that they're treating Israel and saying, they're not going to be happy until Israel is gone. There's no amount of demands that Israel could make that could give into by Hamas, by Hezbollah, by anybody. There's no amount of demands Israel could give into that would cause Hamas to say, okay, that's enough, we'll be friends now. Hamas is not going to be happy until Israel has been destroyed. In the same way, the Armenians mostly here believe that Azerbaijan is not going to be happy until Armenia is destroyed. And so they feel like Pashinyan is engaging in there's a strange noise up there. I wonder what that is. They feel like Pashinyan is engaging in a fool's errand by acceding to any demands from Azerbaijan because they're just going to keep coming. Those demands are going to keep coming. And they may be right. They may be right about that. But again, what's their other option? Go to war with Azerbaijan? They did that in 2020 and lost 5,000 men in 44 days. That would happen again, most likely, if they went to war with Azerbaijan, and they know it. They are trying feverishly now, Armenia is, trying to modernize its military. There are United States military troops here in Armenia every week, small numbers, training the Armenian army in how to overcome or get out of the... I see your question there. I'll get to it in a second, Lucina. The Armenian army is trying to get away from the Soviet military strategic mindset, which is very top-down. Field commanders can't make any decisions without an okay from the very top. They're not facilitated or enabled to make decisions on the fly or anything like that. So it's a very rigid structure, and it's a very antiquated structure, and it's easy to absolutely, cream them when they understand that the Azeris have that same structure. So they figure if they modernize and kind of adopt Western military strategy, Armenia will be able to more effectively fight Azerbaijan in the next time they go to war, which is kind of a matter of when, not if. Okay, so somebody asked the altitude where I am. I honestly don't know exactly. I think I'm about 5,200 feet. Let me see. 5,282 feet, if my meter is correct. We're just about a mile high here, if I remember right. And it is pretty chilly. I'm getting rained on here a little bit. It's dripping on me from overhead. And the air is pretty cold right now. I'd say it's probably in the 40s even. In about a week, I'm going to be camping up here in this weather. So I'm really hoping it warms up by next week. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty miserable. So there's this march going on. This Archbishop of the Armenian Apostolic Church is leading a march to Yerevan from Tavush province, where the villages were that they gave up just now, trying to drum up support for, taking back those villages, those empty villages. I hope to be able to interview him if I get a chance. I would love to be able to interview that bishop and kind of get a better understanding of what he wants to happen. And when I do, or if I do, I will definitely update you on that. But as far as I can tell, Armenia is left with two very bad choices. One is to accede to Azerbaijan's demands, and those demands will keep coming, or not accede to their demands and eventually get attacked again by Azerbaijan. Neither of those is good. I guess Pashinyan figures the lesser of the two evils is to put off an eventual second or third, whatever we're on now, war with Azerbaijan by acceding to these demands and helping to try to shore up. What he's hoping to do is to shore up the border, kind of demarcate the border better with Azerbaijan and get Azerbaijan to agree to some sort of peace deal in writing that would be enforceable and would allow Armenia to get more support or at least compassion from the world if or when Azerbaijan attacks again. So that's I think, what they're trying to do there. And I'm not, like I said, I'd like to talk to people more about that. We'll see if I get a chance to do that before I have to leave. Please go hit the like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed. I am, let's see. We had a really good day up here. I mean, it was sunny, it was fairly warm. We went hiking, it was nice, and then it started raining. So it's gotten kind of cold here as it's starting to get dark. But it is 7:30 at night here. So there we go. Also, isn't Azerbaijan a pro-Russian Muslim place? Very good question, Space Wiener. Did you, come on, do I have to? Yeah, it's a very good question. Whether Azerbaijan is pro-Russian, they're not really. Azerbaijan has kind of been contrary to Russia in the past, but now Russia and Azerbaijan, the alliances have shifted because Armenia was a little upset with Russia because Russia had peacekeepers in Armenia and was supposed to keep Azerbaijan from trying to attack them and taking more land. Hi, Marianne. Thank you for being there. But then they didn't. The Russian peacekeepers just sort of sat on their thumbs and watched as Azerbaijan attacked Armenia, and especially in September of last year when they attacked the Nagorno-Karabakh district and pushed out those remaining 120,000 Armenians. Russia should have stopped that. They had agreed to do so, but they didn't. And so Armenia was pretty upset about that. And they made that very clear. And so Russia said, you know what? We're out of here. And they pulled their peacekeepers out of Armenia. And they have started to ally more with Azerbaijan and say, okay, you know, Armenia started inviting the West in here, inviting U.S. troops in here, wanting to, I mean, there was more to it than that. The agreement or the friendship, the alliance that Armenia had with Russia also was excuse me, was breaking down because Russia was pulling their peacekeepers out and sending them to Ukraine, so they couldn't keep enough peacekeepers here to really do the job that they had agreed to do. Armenia had purchased something like $410 million worth of weapons from Russia that Russia never delivered because Russia had been sending those weapons to Ukraine. Russia needed those weapons and couldn't provide them to Armenia. And so Armenia got jilted out, and then Russia wouldn't return the money either. And so they kind of screwed them out of all of that, and that made Armenia angry. Armenia was a member of the CSTO, which is the Russian equivalent of NATO, and they sort of stopped supporting that because the CSTO was ostensibly supposed to come to their aid when Azerbaijan attacked them, and they didn't. And so Armenians are like, well, what good is a CSTO? We're going to lean more toward the West now. When they did that, as soon as they did that, Putin just withdrew his support and said, okay. And so he just started supporting Azerbaijan. Pretty fickle, if you ask me. It's left Armenia with very few good options. And that's pretty unfortunate for Armenia. And believe me, the people here in Armenia are very worried about their future, about what will likely happen in the future. And so we need to pray for Armenia in that. Again, this beautiful country, beautiful people, friendly people, and lots of Christian history here, lots of Christian tradition here. And they're surrounded by extremist Muslim neighbors who want to kill them. So that's not cool. All right, let's talk for a minute about the Rafa operation in Israel. Israel has apparently begun their operation in Rafa, but not with shock and awe, let's say. They've gone in with limited strikes, airstrikes for now, not with troops on the ground so far. I adore... Yeah, good morning, everybody. Our, Israel has started with strikes into, okay, question one tired mama, does Armenia have any allies? Eh, allies how? I mean, the United States is being helpful to Armenia now. They've given them some, help. They've started to withdraw their military financial support from Azerbaijan, so that's helpful from Armenia. The French have helped Armenia. They've even sent some military supplies to Armenia, so I think you could call the French an ally, but very few and far between. They need more friends for sure. Okay, so again, back to the Rafa operation. Israel has not started pushing troops into Rafa. They are dropping leaflets, putting out the word that everybody needs to leave like the eastern third of Rafa and go west. They've set up large safe zones in the west of Rafa, larger than Rafa itself, where people can go to be safe. And they've started conducting airstrikes. You can imagine that they've been using all of this time for the last several weeks with massive aerial reconnaissance over Rafa, watching it like a hawk and coming up with a long list of targets that they're going to attack. And so they've also been building up forces on the border with Gaza. So they've got, the Israelis have 2 brigades. That's like 30,000 troops inside Gaza. And they pulled out all the rest of their troops. But that doesn't mean that they went away. A lot of those troops have been called back up. And they are now arrayed around Gaza. And so when this operation into Rafah kicks off in earnest, it's not like the IDF is limited to the 30-ish thousand troops they've got in Gaza now to carry out that operation. They're going to push in more troops from outside Gaza, from the east, into Rafah, and start pushing the remaining Hamas elements, battalions, toward the west and sort of squeeze them into the sea, drive them into the sea. They believe that, I think they've got it cordoned off, they've got Rafa cordoned off into 4 sections. They're going to go into the first section from the east and then tell everybody in section 2, you guys need to leave or else we're going to consider you combatants, and give them a little bit. And then they're going to go into section 2 and then section 3. From what I understand, they believe Yahya Sinwar and most of the leadership is hiding in tunnels in section 4. And they're going to just tighten the noose around them more and more. As soon as they started that operation with the airstrikes yesterday, the Hamas operatives who have been all this time, at the negotiating table going, we don't think, we need to think about this for a week or 2. And, they've been going back and forth, just doing what they can to run out the clock. They've been not agreeing to anything that Israel came up with. Right at the last minute when Israel started the operation, Qatar and Egypt came out with their own peace proposal and said, hey, what about this? And Hamas immediately said, yes, we accept that. And the only reason they did that is so that the headlines could say, without a doubt, in my mind, this was all planned between Qatar, Egypt, and Hamas, that, hey, as soon as Israel starts their ground operation into Rafah, we're going to float this peace plan without consulting Israel. We're going to float this peace plan. Hamas will immediately accept it. And then all the media will come out and say, Hamas accepted the peace plan and Israel attacked anyway. And that's, in my mind, that's exactly what is happening. That peace plan is, there's not a lot of details that have come out about it. At least I've been traveling today, so we probably have heard more about that peace plan. But Why would Qatar and Egypt not want Hamas eliminated? Qatar is a Trojan horse. Qatar pretends to be a progressive Muslim country. They're not. They pretend to be friendly to the West. They're not. Qatar is friendly to extremist Muslim ideology and has been sheltering the leadership of Hamas for many years. So Qatar is like the Canadians of Hamas. If we called the Canadians the nice North Americans. Qatar is a wolf in sheep's clothing, in my opinion, without a doubt. So Qatar doesn't want Hamas eliminated. They're just pretending. They're not even pretending they want them eliminated. They're just pretending to be a non-biased, impartial observer in these talks. Egypt kind of just wants this thing to end. I don't think that they really have an opinion one way or the other, but Egypt is a Muslim country. They don't like Hamas, without a doubt, but they also don't like Israel very much. And so I don't know that they are a malevolent player in this act of the ridiculous clown show that we're watching unfold here. As they want the Red Sea open, the Suez Canal functioning, and they want to get back to collecting those tolls from ships going through the Suez Canal. They want this over. That's what they want. Chuck Holton, question: what's the most favorite country you've been to? Armenia is right up there, without a doubt. I like Armenia a lot. I feel like, I'm not from Armenia, but it feels like home when I come here. I like it a lot. Why is the U.S. so stupid to work with Qatar? I've been asking myself that question for a long time. I believe that the people who are actually pulling the strings in the Biden administration, not Joe Biden, are more like Valerie Jarrett from the Obama administration, who was herself of Iranian descent and very friendly to the Iranians. I think that the Biden administration is not pro-Israel in any way, shape, or form. They put on a good face about being pro-Israel because there are a lot of liberal Jews in the United States who give a tremendous amount of money to the Democratic Party. As a matter of fact, some studies that I saw showed that like 40% of the money the DNC receives in donations comes from Jewish donors. I don't know if that's true exactly or not, but it's just something I read. But they also give like 20% of the Republican coffers as well. Suffice it to say that that wealthy Jews in the United States are very politically active, and many of them are liberal and donate to liberal causes. That may be changing because they are unhappy with the way that the Biden administration is handling this. But without a doubt, the people pulling the strings in the Biden administration are more pro-Iran than they are pro-Israel, even though they try to pretend to straddle that fence. And as I said many times, that's a very sharp fence to straddle. Don't the Jewish donors know this administration doesn't like them? Yeah, I think they do. But again, many of them are, believe it or not, many liberal Jews, politically liberal Jews, don't like Israel very much. In America, these guys that live in America, they really are pretty negative on America, on Israel. They don't think it ought to be destroyed necessarily, but they're not super happy with Israel to speak of. I gotta keep an eye on the time here. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get going here pretty quick. But what we should expect to see is that I don't think Israel will start its ground operation for several more days at a minimum, because they have to give. They've just started putting out the word that people need to leave the first section of Rafa that they plan to go into, and so they have to give the people time to actually collect up their stuff and leave. You got to feel for the 1 to 2 million. Nobody really knows how many people are in Rafa. It's a lot. It's more than were there at the beginning. And you got to feel for those people. They've already probably been displaced maybe 2, 3 times, maybe more in this war. Actions have consequences. Voting in a government who literally runs on hate probably wasn't such a good idea, and many people are starting to realize that. And every bit of misery, every ounce of misery and death and destruction that is being visited on Gaza would not have happened if October 7th had not happened. And so all of that lies right at the feet of Hamas. Question, where are you having dinner tonight? We're having it right here at the hotel. This is a hotel called Hover, and it's beautiful. I love it. It's a nice hotel. It's the first time we stayed here. And the dinner looks awesome. So I'm going to have to get down there here pretty quick. Got any last minute questions? Go ahead and ask them now. And let's see. And do where those poor people go. Well, like I said, they can go west from Rafah, and there is a safe zone established by Israel that is larger than Rafah out toward the beach, toward the Mediterranean Sea, that they can go to. And there are tents set up, tens of thousands of tents set up for them. There's aid there. That's where that dock is being set up by the, so the United States is the one who decided they were going to set up a dock off the shore of Gaza. As it turns out, the Israelis are doing most of the heavy lifting because Joe Biden said there won't be any U.S. boots on the ground in Gaza. Well, there have got to be some boots on the ground in order to put the dock in. And so what they did is they sort of cajoled the Israelis into doing the ground side, and the United States would do the sea side. Now, there's going to be a separation. This dock will be 2 pieces. There's a dock that's attached to the shore that's about 500 meters long, very long dock. 500 meters, that's more than a quarter mile long. And then there will be about a quarter mile separation, and then floating out at sea, about half a mile offshore, or 1 kilometer, is a larger floating dock that will be built by the United States, is going to be built by the United States. That separation, so the dock attached to the shore is being taken care of by Israel. The dock, the part that's offshore, that's floating out there, will be taken care of by the United States. So big ships full of aid can come into the floating dock, offload aid onto trucks that will then drive onto smaller boats, and then the smaller boats will cross that half a kilometer stretch of water to the pier, and the trucks will drive off onto the pier and ostensibly go be, distributed to the people in the area. Now, that's the plan, but I guarantee you Hamas will shoot at the pier that's connected to their shores. They're already spreading the lie that the United States and Israel are planning a permanent military base in Gaza. Nothing could be further from the truth. And it's also very patently ridiculous on its face for the Biden administration to keep saying there won't be any U.S. boots on the ground, because it doesn't matter whether they actually touch the soil of Gaza if they are close enough to Gaza for Hamas to shoot them. And they will be. U.S. troops, probably 1,000 of them, will be out at sea, a half a mile offshore, easily within range of Hamas rockets and even mortars to shoot at them. And you just wait. That will happen. Hamas will shoot at the United States. That it's a gigantic floating dock. I mean, imagine this dock that is big enough for semi-trucks to drive around on. out at sea, like a huge barge that's, just anchored out there, I don't see any scenario where Hamas doesn't try to shoot at that thing. And they will be within range of Hamas guns. So by saying that we won't put any boots on the ground in Gaza, Biden is trying to, make Americans feel like, oh, it's okay. There won't be any U.S. troops at risk in Gaza because we're not going to put any boots on the ground. But if you've got them, 15 yards offshore, it doesn't matter if their boots touch the ground. They could still get shot. And this is something that the Biden administration is hoping that you're too stupid to understand. So that's why I'm trying to enlighten people about how this all works. Okay? So that's all I've got for today. I've got to run to supper. Thank you for watching. Again, you can join us on these tours. Actually, I don't think you can join us. I think we actually had people sign up today, and our trips for the rest of this year are now full. But if you are interested in coming to Armenia, send me an email, hotzoneholton@gmail.com. We'll see what we can do. All right? God bless you all. Thank you very much. Please, again, like and share the podcast and go to chuckholton.com, sign up over there. And the pier is a waste of our money. Yes, it is. All right. God bless you. Take care.